have both.
Court is in session with Ryan and Sactown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan and Sactown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
Say his name and he appears.
I appear. You say my name, Ryan in Sactown. What's up? When I say that I just sat down at the chair, I literally just sat down at the chair. It has been a busy day. Happy Thursday, or Wednesday, excuse me. I'm already into Thursday. Happy Wednesday. What's going on? Got some updates for you. Anybody catch the TNT special last night? Behind the scenes, whatever they titled it. I thought it was great. And by the way, I am so late to one party. I am super late to that party. We'll go into it. The Indiana Pacers on the brink of making the NBA Finals. The Thunder tonight have a chance to seal their spot in the finals as well. I caught Grant's show last night, open forum. Really good show, by the way. Good job by all of you that called. No calls, but a lot of good conversation. Grant will be back tonight at 8 o'clock. Make sure you join him again. But he and Tyrese Halliburton might have changed my mind. He may have changed my take on this whole Halliburton situation. The what ifs that we've been doing the last couple days. I thought he made a dynamic argument last night. So we'll replay that. I'll roll you through it. We get you ready for basketball tonight. And we talk about the Kings. We already have odds out on DeMar DeRozan, where he's going to land. And I know you got to be a degenerate to play those types of futures, but it's funny that the Kings are a plus 800 to retain him. So we'll get into all that and more as we go on. We've got about 2 hours for you here on the channel, getting you ready for Timberwolves and the good old Oklahoma City Thunder. Also, got an ears update. We've got an ears update about the NBA draft. We'll get to it. Welcome to the King's Court. Court's in session on If You Don't Like That. Wrong graphic. I don't want those two.
Late nights on the screen, hey, it's Grant and Ryan. We bleed purple, talking hoops, never lying. Sacramento Kings, we rise and we fall. If you don't like that, then you don't know ball. Jerry sitting with the stories of the game, spilling all the truth, driving legends insane. From the Cow Palace days to Arco's roar, this town's heart beats on the hardwood floor. If you don't like that, turn away now. Kings in our blood, we ride.
How good was that Jerry Reynolds segment yesterday? That was an excellent segment. By the way, for those that have asked, the audio from this show is now back up on Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast. So for whatever reason, you can't catch us live on YouTube, you want to take us with you on the go, you can find the show there. So happy to be with you. As I said, quick NBA update. And I've got a question for everybody too. After that update, we've got ears chiming in on the NBA draft.
I want to let it marinate a bit.
So the NBA draft early entrants down 106 or down to 106 players, lowest number since 2015. I'm like, why do my ears feel weird? I got my earbuds backwards. Do I? No, that was right. See, should have been here earlier. Anyways, the NBA draft entrants down to 106. Lowest since 2015. Adam, nothing to marinate about.
Marinate a bit.
Other than your lottery picks, the rest of the players get paid more in college. We'll leave it at that. Of course, it's going to be different now. It's the Wild West in college. Jerry and I talked about that yesterday. Here's a party that I'm late to. Did you know that Kenny Smith and Stephen A. Smith are brothers? I had no idea. How did I not know that? Let me know in the chat. Did you know that? I had no clue that they were brothers. Tristan, can't believe we're out of the California Classic. What an embarrassment. Well, it is what it is. You start it, then you're out of it. It kind of started to show off the building, right? And then it transformed from there. That's a knock on him. ISO ball. Well, we'll go through the odds of where teams have him landing. And this whole idea of Sabonis to Golden State and what Grant said last night about Sabonis, he drew a really, what I thought was a very significant line in the sand that kind of made me go back and think, well, what the hell are the Kings doing right now then? Like, what are you doing? If he's not a guy you build around, what are we doing? I mean, what are we doing here? Sorry, jungle Tourette's. Some of you know what I'm dealing with there. If you don't build around Domas, he's not a guy you build around. What are the Kings doing? Interesting. Looks like Baki's in the house early. Peter Anderson, Pacers equal good management of talent, Kings poor management of talent. That was part of my argument. That was definitely part of my argument. Pacers stole our move from us. We wanted Siakam. Yeah, Dennis, Siakam didn't want you. There you go. Siakam didn't want to play here. Bad management. Yeah, the word was out. What was that? 2 years ago now? Incredible. Siakam apparently insulted by the Kings. There's some players that take that chip and it stays with them. Stuff that they hear in pre-draft workouts. Look at Tyrese Halliburton. I meant to ask Jerry, and I want to ask Grant this. In Grant's time with the Kings, and Jerry, we'll ask him next week, Tyrese seemed to be legitimately drawn to the city. Like, he was heartbroken when he got traded. He was blindsided. That was like you just scheduled the engagement photos. You've got the photographer lined up for engagement night at the restaurant. Like, it's full steam ahead that you're going to get married and she's going to say yes. And you drop down on the knee and she runs out of the restaurant. Which, by the way, stadium proposals, those are never a good idea. Like, it better be a slam dunk if you're going to do that and drop that on a girl in front of or a male. If you're a girl proposing to your boyfriend, you better make sure that they have been lobbying for that for years. Because have you seen where the girls run off the court? They don't give an answer. It's just a bad look. You better know the answer beforehand, like the cops and attorneys. We know the answers to the questions we are asking. But back to the point with Tyrese, he seemed to really love this city. And I think he's on the record saying he carried a massive chip on his shoulder about what the Kings did to him. It drove him. So some players are definitely different in that way. As we continue rolling through the chat, well, we have the Giants coming to play in Sacramento on July 5th during the California Classic. There you go. Look, the California Classic, the only thing for me that I was watching last year was the one game that Keegan Murray played in. You had nothing else to really watch. I guess looking at what the roster's going to be, that would be probably significant to me. Which way that they're looking, it's going to be a lot of the younger guys. Patrick, how you doing, buddy, man? Limping into Game 5. I put a poll out last night, and I think it might go 7. I've just got a little feeling in my stomach, Patrick, that it's not over. But then I look at the numbers on the series. By the way, we're talking about the Pacers and the Knicks. Let me bring the stats up from last night for all of you. You look at the numbers on the series. And go back, watch the tape from last week or from before this series started. I said, you have two completely contrasting styles. You've got the Knicks that want to grind you out. They want to play physical. They want it to be a race to 100 points. That is New York Knicks basketball. Then you've got the Pacers. They want to run, run, run. They can beat you from anywhere on the court. They want a high-scoring game. Every game this series, including last night's game, 130 to 121. The scoring's been way up there. They have been, with the exception of the Knicks win in game 3, which for a half, it looked like it was going to be Pacers basketball, where that score was 106-100. Everything else has been Pacers basketball. So that's where I kind of hold back a little bit in saying that it might go 7, but I don't know. I just think that there's a little something left in New York. Now, the wild card is Tom Thibodeau and how he's going to, well, the first wild card is Mitchell Robinson. How do you exploit that matchup? Because people saying that certain matchups have been exploited in this series, they haven't. Exploited is layup after layup after layup. But when Mitchell Robinson stepped into the starting lineup, that threw a little curveball at Indiana. And although the score didn't show it at halftime, that was a difficult adjustment for them to deal with. So I look at him, and then it's also the bench guys. Like, who's Tips going to ride with? Is he going to get something from Chandry? Is he going to get something from Miles? It's just very interesting. Oh, look at who is here. I have not talked to this man in a minute. Really interested to see what he's going to have to say about his Rockets. And we talked about this a couple days ago, Şengün being left off of the All-NBA teams. Moss, my man, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's up, Randall, man? How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Got you back. Is my mic okay?
Yeah, you're perfect, brother.
Okay, cool. Won't keep you long. I don't care about Şengün being left off the team. I mean, it's who do you take off, and so, I mean, I can argue that, even though there's a case to be made for him, but I'm not losing sleep. I'm not losing any sleep over it. I think Amin Thompson is our best player at this point. Very
He's on the all defensive team, first team.
I saw that. Yeah, I'm so disappointed with the physicality and the level of aggression with Şengün at times. He lets Draymond, who's 6'5", bully him. He forced tough long hook shots, and it's just like he's a very skillful big man, but he needs to get back in the lab and get stronger. And he's got that European, he wants to be a Dirk at times, one-legged fadeaways, and he's just, don't take this word the wrong way, but he's soft to me a little bit. And I think in the postseason it came to fruition, and there were a few plays where I want to see him be a little bit more assertive and a little bit more and be more demonstrous, in the paint. And he let guys push him out 18, 15, 19 feet, and he's selling for jump shots. I don't like that, right? And so he's not my favorite Rockets player. He's a good player, but I think there's room for improvement. I'm a Thompson guy now.
Let me ask you a quick question while we're on the topic of Şengün.
Sure.
How do you think, compared to Domas, how do you think Şengün played against Draymond? Who played Draymond better?
Ooh,
in the
great
playoffs?
Great question. At times, Şengün did, because he's more skilled down there. He can go left hand, right hand, a little better footwork down there. I think Sabonis is easier to guard for a lot of bigs because he only has the left hand. Like, he doesn't, I mean, he just wants to get to that right shoulder and shoot that hook shot and the pick and roll and the jump shot, right? Shot isn't nothing to be writing home about, but he'll take it. Whereas Domas wouldn't take it. So to answer your question, but Sabonis to me is he's more physical, right? He can put Draymond on his back and get down low. I don't think Draymond can just bully Sabonis the way he can bully Shagun by pushing him out. So it's give and take. But to answer your question, I don't know, man. I'm gonna say Sabonis, but I don't feel confident saying it. I mean, either guy can get theirs. Maybe it's on either given night or how the game is being called. I don't know, but I'm gonna say Sabonis for right
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
now. I won't keep you long. The Pacers, wow, didn't see this coming. I knew they were good. Knew they were fast. I knew they played fast. I don't think they're nothing great to write home defensively, but they do enough defensively, Ryan, to where they're okay.
Hmm.
I'm loving Siakam because he's playing out of his mind. Obviously, Tyrese is playing some good basketball, but I've been impressed with guys like Nimhart and Neesmith and
Yep.
McConnell. And I'm not a big Miles Turner guy. He's a big who shoots threes, and again, he'll get down there on occasions. But come on, man, you're 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", and you're shooting Steph Curry threes. I just don't. That's just not. I'm not cool with that, and I'm not sure why Rick Carl's cool with that, and he's okay with it. And I mean, that's going to work versus New York because they're not going to make them pay. But OKC is not having that, and so hopefully there will be adjustment there. Now, agree this. Now, check this out, Ryan. I love Brunson. Think he's a very very good player. The ball's in his hands too much. I'm sorry, and I said this a few days
Yeah.
ago. He's so ball dominant, and you can look up and you can see he'll have 8 9 assists on occasions. But I care about the type of assists you get and when you get them. And there's some plays to be made without him looking just to score. That
Yeah.
leaves me kind of like saying, you're the ball is in your hands too much, and you got to let some of these other guys just get off. And so,
Isn't it kind of hard to say those words because it's
yes,
not
it is.
coming from a selfish place, Moss, with Brunson?
It's. I think he has the right. I think he has good intentions and the right
Yeah.
mindset, but I don't think it's a winning style, right?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And you're right. It's hard for me to say that because everybody is singing his praises and he deserves to get praised. But again, like because you can score 40 doesn't mean it's the best thing to do if you're trying to win. How about you score 28? Give me 8 9 assists, good assists at that. Compete on defense more. Go let Bridges, Cat, Anobi, and those guys, Hart, and these guys, McBride, let them give you 15, 16, 17. Let Cat give you his 22, 23. Spread the wealth around, right? You're too easy to guard at that size at top of the key when I think their offense is very predictable at times, the Knicks. Let me close out with this last one with
Yeah.
OKC, and then I'll listen to you off air. They're good, man. Defensively,
They're
they're good.
good. Yeah.
They're handsy. They dig down low on defense. They help each other. They help them recover very well. They shoot the three ball well. I'm loving Chet's defensive presence. Hornstein, not a big name, but huge impact, right? Just
Yep.
around the rim, rebounding. You saw what he did versus Joker, just making him work. Lou Dort and Caruso. I mean, they think both those guys made the defensive teams, right? I think one made first, one made second or third, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken. J Dub plays defense as well, and he can give you 34. Shea's dropping 40 point, damn near triple doubles, right? How do you defend this team? I don't know. I just don't know. Oh, sorry, you guys.
No, you're good, man.
Dang,
Hey, the King's Court, the King's Court dog's house. So you're
they
good,
always
man.
tend to bark when I come on the Rhino show. Let me close.
They're like the cutest dogs ever, by the way. Like,
Yeah, they're doodles.
they're doodles. Yeah.
I don't see how you beat OKC 4 out of 7. Right, that one game where Minnesota blew them out, Rhino. Okay, cool, no worries. But you got to bank that they have 4 bad games, and offensively, they're good, they're reliable, they move the ball around. Have you ever seen a team this young be this unselfish? And the leadership of SGA is just shining, right? Like, watch how his team just surrounds him at pressers after the game. Like, they're just there. And he's a little, listen, Shea's cocky. He's arrogant. He'll let you know about himself and how good he is. But if you don't like it, then go stop it. And right now,
Yeah. Great point.
yeah, you can't stop it. Last point, I promise. Anthony Edwards, I'm disappointed. Right, you came out last year versus Dallas and said you're tired chasing Kyrie around. I don't like that. And then this year, he's tired again apparently. And you shoot the ball 2 times in the first half in a conference finals game, and you're down 2-1 with Game 4 in your building, and Julius Randle and Ant-Man combines for 20-some points, while J-Dub and SGA is dropping 74, and you think you're going to compete for a championship? That last game, game 4 alone, that totally turned me off, Ant-Man. See, I'm easy to be turned off, Rhino, because it's a mindset, right? It's the postseason. Like, you should be going out on your shield, emptying the clip. You shoot that ball 30 times. It's not about even you making or missing. It's just you're giving the defense more ways to guard you and have to guard you. And when you're that passive and that, just non-aggressive, it's a problem. And so they go home tonight, and I think OKC wins the finals in 4 or 5 games.
They go home tonight. You think OKC wins the finals? Okay.
Oh,
Interesting.
easy. Not even close, man. But we'll talk some more, buddy.
We'll talk some more.
Yes,
So basically what you're saying, and I'll let you get out the door, is Ant-Man is all bark and no bite. That's what you're saying?
Hey, you shoot the ball 2 times, man. I mean, that's not barking to me. Yeah.
I hear you, brother. Hey,
Thanks,
be
buddy.
well. Take care. Good stuff from Moss. I never know when he's going to drop in, and I could talk hoops with him for days on days. Need to have him on the podcast. A few things to react there. Is there a team that's more unselfish than the Oklahoma City Thunder? Yes. The Indiana Pacers. Anybody disagree with me there? I think the Indiana Pacers, and this is where it goes back to the conversation where I want to cover what Grant talked about last night with Halliburton. Halliburton might be, you are watching his rise to superstardom right now, but he makes everybody around him better. He just does. But here's the difference between a player that makes everybody around them better and a player that's infectious. He's infectious. The team plays that way. It doesn't matter who gets the shot. How many times in this series have you seen Pascal hit a huge shot? Turner hit a huge shot. McConnell hit a huge shot. Tyrese hit a huge shot. Nemhard, how many in MSG? Those dudes are dialed in and on the same page. And Jerry said it yesterday when I asked him. I said, is there just a little hint of the old Kings teams, the 2002 teams, in that Pacers team? And he said, absolutely. He sees it too. So as for that matchup, I think it's a really interesting one. And here's why I think it's super interesting. And I know each team's a game away from getting us there. But it is exactly what this new CBA, it's driven for this new CBA. That is what this CBA was written for. It was for mid-market, small market teams to be able to compete for championships. Now, Oklahoma, they've both done it different. You can't give credit to the CBA for making that possible matchup, but you sure as hell, if you're the NBA, can't complain about ratings and not having a big market team in the finals because you just put a 7-year collective bargaining agreement in place that aims to have the small markets in those slots. I think if you're a basketball junkie, you are going to love that basketball series. Who knows? You're going to hear a lot of people complaining about it. I think the ratings will be better than expected. A lot of people saying the ratings will not be good. I'm not quite there yet. As for Anthony Edwards, I think he is caught in a very difficult position. And this might be that year. I think Mr. Moss brought up an excellent point about his shape. This might be the year that really makes him look in the offseason and separate and realize that there are additional levels to this. When you're as young as him, you're in back-to-back conference finals. And here's a reminder, too. Guys played a lot of basketball. He played in the Olympics last year. So you got to throw that into the mix, but you got to be in shape. You got to be in condition. Everybody is hurt. Now, where I say he's in a catch-22 is if he goes out and he takes bad shots, the media is going to kill him for that as well. So how do you get in that middle? I think a lot of it is on him. He needs to be more creative. He's going to be considered a quote unquote face of the NBA moving forward, part of that new generation. But you need some help from Chris Finch too. Because the reality is your bench is not going to help you the way that it helped Minnesota last game in that loss. So a lot to talk about still with the NBA playoffs. I want to get back to your comments. A lot of you talking about the California Classic. The Warriors will entertain the Los Angeles Lakers, Miami Heat, San Antonio Spurs in the Summer Showcase, July 5th, 6th, and 8th in Chase Center. So the Kings are out of it. However, not my reporting. Make sure I get this name right. It is Jason. Jason Anderson is reporting that the Kings are likely to host the California Classic next year, according to a source. Interesting. I wonder if it is scheduling. I wonder if it is product. I talked a lot yesterday about Vivek being out and forward facing in all the wrong places for all the wrong reasons. Coach Reynolds called it a lack of maturity. With Edwards, he's only 23. Exactly right. Timberwolves need to trade Edwards. Are you crazy? Really? Why would you want to trade Anthony Edwards? I think that's a little bit of a reach. Soft touch is non-existent. That's not a bad point. That is not a bad point. However, you can't argue with his athleticism. What he lacks in soft touch more than makes up for in athleticism. He's made 2 or 3 of the freakiest basketball plays I've ever seen in my life. Hands down. Like stuff from The Sixth Man. Anybody seen The Sixth Man? The Wayans brothers movie where they're basketball players at UW? Yeah. One of them passes away, unfortunately, comes back as a ghost, and now you've got all these players making freaky plays. Looks like what Ant does sometimes on the court. So still a lot to get to. If you want to call the show, please do. Would love to hear from you today. A quick update, by the way, on that story that we talked about in Indy, where a Pacers fan stabbed apparently multiple Knicks fans. So check this out. I don't know what it was or what it is because I wasn't there. I did not see it. But there's reporting out that the Pacers fan left the establishment, came back, and then stabbed the fans. What are we doing? Insane. So we're going to run through some numbers for tonight. Here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Hallie. We're going to talk about DeMar's landing places. Bovada officially has odds on who the favorite is to land DeMar, and it somehow kind of links back to something Jerry and I talked about yesterday, so we'll get to that as well. But I want to play for you what Grant said last night on his Open Forum show in regards to Tyrese Halliburton, and I want to react to it because I took an opposite approach. In a nutshell, my approach to Tyrese Halliburton was you sold before you knew exactly what you had. You had a couple of tastes of what he might be, but it was still early on. But there's no way that he would have had the same infrastructure. There's no way that he would have had the support of ownership, team building, and not team building, going out to dinner, team building, building the roster around him. He would have been in a dysfunctional mess, much like De'Aaron Fox did. And not that Halliburton is a product of his environment, but Sacramento's environment for him to succeed would have been much smaller than what it is in Indianapolis. So that was my take in a nutshell. You had to take that into account. If we're going to look back and say, That's the guy that the Kings let go. Here's what Grant said on his show last night.
Would love to have you on. Would love to have you on. I got asked this earlier today, so I'm going to ask you. And I'll give you my answer first. And Ryan was on with me a couple of days ago, and we were talking about this. And Ryan's contention is that if the Kings had kept Tyrese Halliburton, that he wouldn't have been this type of a player because the Kings have shown an inability to build teams. And I said this before I talked with Ryan. Tyrese, to me, is more of a special player than he is of a special talent. Like when I watch Tyrese Halliburton play, he doesn't take my breath away. He doesn't. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander takes my breath away. Tyrese doesn't. But I look at the numbers after all these games, and Halliburton is just a special player. So after watching the playoffs the last 2 years and not knowing what's going to happen for the rest of these playoffs, I answered the question this way. If I could go back in time and make that trade, would have I made it? And the answer is no. I would not have made it if I could go back and do it all over again. I would have kept Halliburton, and I would have built my entire team around him. I would have traded everybody for all intents and purposes, and I would have kept Halliburton, and I would have built my entire franchise around this special player. So that's the way I'm going to answer the question, because I believe that Halliburton is a franchise player. The Kings don't have a franchise player. Yes, they have Sabonis, but because of the position he plays, I'm not so sure you can build a team around him. You could build a team, and the Indiana Pacers have built a team around Tyrese Halliburton. So that's the way I would answer that question. Agree or disagree? What do you think about that?
So where do you come out? The conversation continued from there, and it was a good conversation between all of you and Grant. Here's a few things that I took away from the conversation. As I thought about what Grant said, the word that came to mind with Tyrese is he's universal. Is there a better way to encompass his game? He's universal. He can do a little bit of everything. Now, not only is his game universal, but he fits with pretty much anyone except De'Aaron Fox, allegedly. So, in terms of building a team around him, and I am not knocking what the Pacers did. Pacers have I think, one of the best balanced teams. I think they have the most balanced team in the NBA. They have the best, and hear me out here. They are not the best team in the NBA, but they have the best team in the NBA. Everybody knows their role, and they play like a star in their role. And everybody's completely unselfish. So building around is a little bit easier to do. But what bleeds into that team is him. So Grant, to that degree, is right. The second thing that I came away from that is, it's ironic that the Kings have had such a gaping hole at the point guard position. Gaping. Since they traded Hallie. Is there a better word than gaping? I don't think there is. It's a massive hole. Could the Kings built around him? The more that I think about it and I listen to Grant, I think the Kings' hand might have been forced. to build around him. I think it's possible. You might have seen more from him than you saw from De'Aaron. In fact, I think it's likely. And look at the pressure there was to build around Fox, which definitely would have been a mistake. But if you have somebody like Hallie, your hand might be forced if you're management, because you're going to see a little more than what you were seeing from De'Aaron. Last thing that I took away from it is the last thing that Grant said. Quote unquote, you can't build a team around Sabonis. Then let me ask you, what the hell are the Kings doing right now? Do you agree or disagree with that? And I understand the nuance that Grant is saying between a talent and a player. And he's right. So it kind of has me rethinking this entire thing, not the trade. I'm not recapping all this to pour salt in the wound. I don't think that anybody, you might be a little sour that he's having success, but is there really a true Kings fan out there that's not rooting for Hallie a little bit? I know I am, right? But to today, what are you doing if you're the Kings? If you can't build around Sabonis, are you building around Zach LaVine? Scary thought, but possible. What are you doing? Is it time to rethink everything? Now, Mr. Moss talked about, he thought Oklahoma City was the best team, best built team. The secret sauce right now to the Pacers' success, besides what I'm talking about on offense and what Jerry and I talked about yesterday on offense, the secret sauce to their success with running and defense is the fact that they can pretty much switch 1 through 5. Now, back to the Kings. Is that something the Kings are strongly considering? I think it is. Jerry and I talked about it yesterday. I think it's one of the reasons that you have heard Drew Holiday's name come up in Sacramento. Although I don't think there's a deal that could be done to get Drew in Sacramento, nor do I think it would be his first preference to come to Sacramento. I think the Celtics probably are going to look for a little bit less, considering Tatum will be out next year, because they don't want to take on that same payroll. They're going to look for more bang for their buck. But I got to give the Kings credit. If that's where their head's at, I like it, because Doug Christie, what's his strength? It's defense. It's scrappiness. Daniel says 83-year-old Drew pass. Okay. Hear me out for a second, though. Doug Christie's strength, defense, hustle. You look at the current roster, and let's make a couple assumptions here. These are big assumptions. The first assumption is the Kings are able to figure out the Keon Ellis situation. Let's assume that. So Keon's back. Let's also assume that the Kings are also going to be able to re-sign Jake LaRavia. You now have, and I'm going to leave right now, I'm going to leave Devin Carter out of the situation. Al, I'm getting the voice line up for you, so give me a couple of minutes. You can call in. Let's assume that he's out of the conversation. But if a Drew Holiday did come to Sacramento, or a player that can play multiple positions defensively, and you can switch 1 through 4 through 5, You now have Keegan Murray, Keon Ellis, Jake LaRavia that can all do that. You throw another point guard in there that can do that can guard multiple positions. The Kings are much closer to being competitive. In fact, they are much closer to a top probably 15 defense in the NBA. Now let's throw Devin Carter's name in there. He's shown the ability early on to possibly guard multiple positions. What I'm saying here, and I'm trying to be as optimistic as I possibly can. Super optimistic. I got my purple glasses on right now, trying to bring you as much hope as I can. It's the right place to place your eggs if you're putting them in one basket. It's the defensive side of the ball, because who you have as the head coach, Scott Perry talked about defense. Now you still have the Domas Sabonis thing. The Kings give up so many threes because they have to pack the paint. That is why it is imperative. As Jerry said, you've got to be able to go get a 4-5 that can be on the floor with Sabonis. It's also imperative upon Doug Christie to be able to find a way to work Valanciunas and Sabonis together into a lineup. But you have some good defensive ingredients. Keon Ellis, he can guard in spots 1 through 4. Keegan Murray in spots can guard 1 through 5. Jake LaRavia in spots can guard 1 through 5. You want to sprinkle Devin Carter in there? 1 through 3, probably, if he has a good sophomore summer. What you're seeing with Oklahoma City, in Oklahoma City, we probably need to leave them out of it because they are that good offensively and defensively. Best net rating in the history of the association. But what you're seeing with New York in the regular season, when New York has played well, it's races to 100. It's physicality. Because they can switch. That's what this league is about now defensively, unless you're going to run a zone. So that's where Drew, to me, makes some sense. Al, you can call if you want. As for DeMar DeRozan, I think he is the piece that the Kings are looking to move. I also think he is the most desirable, and by desirable, realistic pieces. The Kings at this point are not moving Keegan Murray unless it's a superstar deal. It's one of those ones that you're trading everybody on the team. The Kings are pretty locked in with Keegs. But DeMar DeRozan, I'm looking at Houston. I'm looking at, I've named the teams that I'm looking at. You can go back and listen to other shows on that. But Bovada came out with odds for some guys and where they might be on the move. So check this out. Here is some of the early odds for Chris Paul. Where will he be playing game 1 of next season? San Antonio plus 110, OKC plus 215. And by the way, the players, this is actually what's kind of funny. These are the only players that Bovada put odds on destinations in the entire NBA. These are the only players currently online. Chris Paul, Oklahoma City, Cleveland plus 360, Golden State plus 500, Toronto plus 750. Oh, excuse me. It's not Chris Paul at the top. I cannot read right now. Who is that at the top? That is... Oh, Cam Johnson at the top. Okay, my bad. So I just read off Cam Johnson. Chris Paul, at the bottom right there. My screen's blocked because of the viewers. Okay, there we go. Dallas Mavericks plus 120, LA Lakers plus 300, Memphis plus 900. I don't think he wants to be a babysitter for Ja Morant. Cleveland plus 675. My eyes are right. And Los Angeles plus 375. As for DeMar DeRozan, here it is. Bovada has the odds. And by the way, the Kings to retain DeMar is plus 800. That's what they put it at. So Vegas, who's usually right more than they're wrong, they seem to also think that DeMar is going to be on the move. They've got the Heat at plus 145. Plus 145. Well, what do the Heat have to offer that the Kings could possibly work with? I don't think you're getting Bam, nor do you want Bam's contract. Tyler Hero? Kings are a little logjam there. Here's an interesting name, Andrew Wiggins. I've seen a lot of you put that name in the chat. Duncan Robinson, he'll be on a player option at the end of next season. Kyle Anderson is signed through 26-27. Davion Mitchell, Jerry and I had that conversation yesterday. Davion Mitchell. Now that one comes with a little bit of an asterisk. And that asterisk is he needs some structure here in Sacramento. No, in fact, the only other team, Mark says no odds for DeMar to the Knicks. No, the only other team that there was odds for is Toronto. Toronto was down there as well. I just didn't click all the way through. So Toronto's on the list, but it's way up there. I know who the Kings would be asking for. It's Khalil Ware. And that's a guy that Jerry was very high on, massively high on in last year's draft. I don't think Miami's trading him. I think he is going to be at that contract. And by the way, Khalil Ware is exactly the type of player that you need to put with Domas Sabonis. And here's my dark horse. If it's going to be Miami, please give me Jaime Jaquez. How great would Jaime Jaquez fit in here with a Doug Christie system? He's just one of those guys that just eats everything up. I would really like Jaime Jaquez there. Could you play Jaime Jaquez with Domantas Sabonis? Yes, you could, because Jaime's like a 3. Maybe he can play the stretch floor 4. Maybe. But if you're looking at that trade, somehow you have got to get Jaime Jaquez in here. And here's another name, and I am not in love with this name. Some of you do like the name, Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier is going to be on an expiring contract next season, and it is $26.6 million. So back to the Kings side of the ledger. There's a market for DeMar DeRozan. And I do actually think it is right, both for the basketball team and DeMar, to get him to a contender. It's a top 30 scorer in the history of the NBA. Scary. Terry? Yeah. So that's what Miami has. The Lakers, that would be DeMar from LA. What could you get from the Lakers for him? A couple of teams that surprised me, and obviously there's been reports, I believe it was Paul Pierce, that said he thinks the Nuggets should trade for DeMar DeRozan, and the Kings would get Michael Porter Jr. Now, that would be a very good fit. A front line, possibly at times. You move Keegan to the 3. You've got Keegan, Porter Jr., Sabonis as your front line. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. But you still, Domas, where's the hole?
Well, the biggest thing is we need a point guard. That's for sure.
So you still got that hole going on. Looks like my man Al has tried to call a couple times. Let's get him in on the show. We'll drop in on Al. Let's give him a call right now. And we'll get to your chat as well.
Hello, you reached Al Shigru, and I'm sorry I can't take your call.
Oh, Al, my man. Tried to get you in here. DeRozan, Valanciunas, for Vincent, Connect, Bronny James, Hachimura. I do like Hachimura. Wouldn't work money-wise. Let's see. What else you guys putting in there? Give me some good ideas here. Let's get Sasha and Davion back for DeRozan come full circle. Look, Davion, I saw a couple of questions in there about how Davion played the second half of the year. He played really well in Miami. Now, what Jerry and I talked about yesterday, and I go back to, is structure. He came from structure at Baylor. You could say the same thing about Keegan Murray in Iowa. One thing that was not structured was Sacramento Kings basketball when Davion Mitchell was here. And I still think you have a little bit of a question mark about Davion's ability to make plays, to be that playmaking point guard. He showed some of that at the end of his tenure in Sacramento, and he did show a little bit more of it in Miami. Let's get Al in on the conversation. Al, what's up? You're live on the King's Court, buddy.
Thanks. Hey, Ryan. How you doing, my friend?
Doing
Thanks for
good.
taking my call.
Of course, brother.
I'm glad everything's good. I'm always listening, and I'm glad to hear that your shows are going to be on repeat, because sometimes I'm out doing things and I miss this show, but I like to catch up on it, and I catch up on Grants. But I just got a couple things, and I'll let you go.
Yeah, hit me.
First off, I gotta echo Peter in the chat. I mean, hindsight is absolutely 2020, and now it's all coming to a head because Halliburton's playing so well, and the Pacers are one game away from the finals. And of course, now it's all coming back to the trade. As it seems like Kings fans, I'm sorry, I loved Kings fans. They're diehard, they're knowledgeable, but for some reason, it seems like they just live and dwell in the past when it comes to trades or Game 6 of 2002. You know, I mean, let's move forward. And Peter pointed out, and that's what I've always thought, well, the Kings needed a big at that time. And I think if I'm understanding, De'Aaron and Hallie, De'Aaron is a point guard, or was there some debate in your mind that De'Aaron wasn't really a true point guard as far as, you know?
Yeah, I don't think De'Aaron's a true point guard, and I think the conflict there in terms of styles is both of them need the ball in their hands. And De'Aaron started to make that transition in year 6 and 7 here in Sactown, and it was okay. It wasn't great, but when they were together those times in their careers, they both needed the basketball.
So to get back to Nate, if I recall, when the trade went down, he emphasized, you know, Sabonis is a 2-time All-Star. He was an All-NBA, and he made another All-Star and another All-NBA with the Kings, and he should have had 2 more All-Stars at least. But at the same time, you know, it's disappointed me. It seemed like he was, I'm recalling when the trade went down, he emphasized those points, but now it seems like his flag's flying in whichever way the wind is blowing, which is really disappointing to me. And if I could describe it like that, if that makes any sense, I mean, now the wind's, you know, it's changed, and they start, you know, Kings got 48 wins when Sabs came over. And I have a question for you, because I'm looking the Kings record. I looked this up at the time of the Halliburton trade. Now he was a very young player. It could have popped, but I like your points. It might have gotten better, but I just personally don't see it ever. If it was him and Fox at the time of the trade, now again, he was very young. The Kings record is 45 and 64. Now, things have gotten better? I'm kind of with you. I think your take is you just don't you really don't. And I'm with you, and that your take is you don't think it could ever happen because there's still other pieces and moves that would have had to been made. And now people are probably. I mean, do we really feel that the Kings would be where the Pacers are now if Halliburton stayed?
No. See, that's so. Yeah, I think you're spot on there. That's too big of a jump. I think the question that I am second guessing is: could the Kings have been further along, and would the Kings, because of Hallie's style, been forced to make more moves? I think they probably would have, but no, they would not be where the Pacers are at right now. Absolutely not.
And for Nate, it's like he really has done a 180 on his take. And that's just my surprise. But I have a question for you. Now I'm a big Sabonis fan, so you got to bear with me here. I know his game has limitations. I've heard folks critiquing everything from the way he shoots, with the ball, with his mechanics. But here's a guy that he's a 3-time All-Star that should have been at least 5, 2-time All-NBA. He's led the NBA in rebounding for 3 straight years. And this is a guy, Ryan, that the team and team management and personnel can't build around. Where am I? In this case, he seems talented enough. Maybe he's not a superstar. I understand that, but you can't build around a guy with that kind of talent. Or is it just he has certain limitations to his game, which a lot of players do, and some computers don't? Everybody has some form of limitations, I would think. Maybe there's a few exceptions out there, but they can't build around Sabs. I mean, what's
okay?
I think everything.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think it's an excellent point to bring up. I think the difference is, if we're gonna point out between Halliburton and Sabonis, Halliburton's universal. He fits with everything. Sabonis isn't. Now, I think quite honestly, the Kings have failed Sabonis. It's not a coincidence that when he was asked what the Kings need to do in the offseason, he cut Brendan Nunez off and says this.
Well, the biggest thing is we need a point guard. That's for sure.
Point guard.
There's a lot of frustration behind the scenes in how Domas has been used. I think Domas is a guy. It's harder. You need to have a more intelligent front office. And I'm not knocking Monty whatsoever, because he's dealing with a lot of the back end stuff with the dynamics in that building. But you needed a more strategic plan about bringing Sabonis in. I think the thought was, when you were bringing Domantas Sabonis in, your thought was you're building around De'Aaron Fox. And quickly, Domantas Sabonis became the piece that everybody looked at, and on the payroll was being paid more than De'Aaron Fox. And it's like, okay, well, which one do we build around at this point? And so that's where the Kings hit that crossroads, and it didn't work. He has never had a true point guard to play with. If he has a true point guard to play with, I think you can build around him to a point, but you're not going to have as easy as a time building around him as you will Halliburton.
Well, I understand. I can see what you're saying. I'm not an NBA guru, but for me, it's like it was, and I really felt Sabonis and Fox really worked well those first 2 years, and to me personally, because in fact, I recall. It seemed like De'Aaron made his first All-Star team. I know the 48 wins, the conference was down. I've heard all that, blah, 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 for me anyway. But the team still really played well. You've spoken to the Pacers' beautiful chemistry, how they, like the old, like Adelman Kings, how the team just accepts their roles, how the ball moves, and everybody accepts and knows their roles. And it seemed to me that, at least early on, Fox was really appreciative. I even saw a comment that his wife had expressed appreciation on some, social media website. And I don't know where the relationship soured there between the two, if it really did, depending on who you want to believe. It's just so disappointed me personally to see things go from working so well, and then the trade for DeRozan. And I've talked to you about this because I've read folks saying he's a ball stopper. He plays an ISO game, and that was the third year after 48 and 46 wins. And hey, God bless you, DeRozan. He's a hell of a talent, but someone else mentioned in the comments at the top of the broadcast, he slows things down. I mean, that seemed like it was the antithesis of what you've spoken to. Rosen coming in with the ISO and ball stopping when the Kings were more, they had some chemistry, I felt, for the first 2 years with the Fox and Sabonis. Maybe there was some, issues with some Sabonis's money. I don't know. That could have been. I'm not sure what happened with De'Aaron. Really, I don't know how it soured there. But I mean, it just DeMar just it's just a different the flow and the chemistry. You've got to work with a guy like that, to structure. Am I off base here? I mean, what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, no, I got you. You're not off base at all. In fact, I'll try to explain. I think I know exactly where you're going, and I've got some thoughts on it. Al, good to hear from you, dude. I appreciate you.
Thanks for taking my call.
Everything's going well, bud.
Yeah, it is. It's great. I'm always listening, man. Take care.
Appreciate y'all. Look, if we want to run it back really quick, we can run it back really quick. The Kings had the best offensive rating in NBA history, and the pace was high. And a lot of reason for that was the way De'Aaron Fox was playing. He was being more aggressive. He was getting to the rim. But it was also the fact that the Kings instituted the dribble handoff. This was not supposed to be an offensive team. This was supposed to be a defensive team. It's what Mike Brown talked about at his intro press conference, right? And then you get this offensive explosion. Teams don't know how to guard it, to the point where they are not even, they're seeing Sabonis as a threat at the three-point line when the guy, I go back and look at the stats. I have maybe did he shoot 23s Beam Team year in 22-23? He probably did not shoot a lot of threes, right? But it resulted in open looks for Kevin Huerter. It resulted in wide open looks for Keegan Murray in the corner. That is where the team, that's where that rating came from. And then teams slowly started to adjust. I think Sabonis, what the Kings were thinking was we can play a hybrid. And this is my educated take. I'm taking into account what I know plus what I kind of put together in my head. The Kings thought that they had a two-headed monster at point guard. You've got this hybrid of a point guard in De'Aaron Fox that is the fastest player on the planet with a basketball. And then you've got Domas Sabonis that's this skilled big man that doesn't always make the quickest decision, but almost always makes the right decision. And we can go back and forth between those two. And when you go back and forth between those two, guess what? It results in open looks for everybody else because now everybody is a threat on the basketball court. So it all came together perfectly, the Beam Team year. Now, Toronto throws you a curveball in mid-December. It was right around Christmas time. They completely lay off of Sabonis. Sabonis had his worst game of the season up until that point. I am talking about the Beam Team year, 22-23, right? Nobody else rolled that look out again. Nobody else rolled that look out again until game 1 of the first round series against the Golden State Warriors. And now all of the sudden it was freaking panic time. Domas Sabonis wouldn't take a mid-range jump shot. When he did, he missed. They weren't guarding the DHO as aggressively when they were running it with Sabonis. And who had to take over out of that two-headed point guard monster? It was De'Aaron Fox. And De'Aaron Fox played wonderfully until he suffered the hand injury. The Kings lost that series in game 3. That's where the Kings lost that series. If we're going to be frank about it, it was game 3. Okay. So now you get into the offseason, right? There was no rush to re-sign Domas Sabonis to an extension. Of course, his camp's going to ask for it. They wouldn't be doing the right thing by their client to not ask for that extension, right? But the Kings thought what they had was they overplayed their hand in terms of how good that team could be moving forward. They figured that was the tip of the iceberg rather than an outlier. The 1 year in 16 that you made the playoffs. So you could have improved more. There was a lot, and the Kings overplayed their hand too. Jerry and I talked about this. The Kings completely overplayed their hand when it came to Sasha Vezenkov. There was too much hype around Sasha. You don't need to be leaking to the media and telling whoever's listening, oh, well, Coach Brown, 2 weeks after the season, went over to watch Sasha play. He's there to pitch him to come to Sacramento. So maybe the Kings thought they had more in Sasha, and they were confident about that as well. But that money that you used to extend Sabonis could have gone to get some of that extra length that Peter's talking about. Now, while all that's going on and the Kings kind of stand pat, guess what? Everybody else in the NBA evolves to guarding the dribble handoff, which in turn is making Domas Sabonis' life even harder. But I saw in the chat what everybody's saying. The guy does what he is asked to do. It's so true. He does what he is asked to do. So he's trying his best to keep up his end of running that dual-headed point guard position. And then you have De'Aaron Fox just laying back and shooting threes. Granted, he shot threes at a higher percentage, but because teams were playing the DHO, which stands for dribble handoff, if you're not familiar with it by now, and I don't mean that in a rude way. I take that for granted sometimes where I'm spitting out basketball terminology. Teams playing that differently now made the looks so much harder for Keegan Murray. They made the looks harder for Kevin Huerter. The looks were harder across the board. Up until this last year, I asked other people in the media, straight up, does De'Aaron Fox make Domas Sabonis better? And most could not answer. But then when I asked, does Domas Sabonis make De'Aaron Fox better? Undoubtedly, yes. Undoubtedly, yes. So is there going to be some frustration there? Absolutely. And what did the Kings do? They doubled down with more plays centered around the dribble handoff this year, this past season, where Mike Brown dug in his heels and made that offense very complicated, and it was complicated before DeMar DeRozan was in it. And so now guys are getting harder looks, and there is less flow to the game. But what's Domas do? He's doing what he is asked. It's really hard to tell when Domas is really having fun, because he's always having fun usually on the basketball court. But when he is running the pick and roll, he is a pig in mud. He's getting downhill. That is what he is made for. You've got to get that man downhill and in motion. And so often the Kings did not. And you had a De'Aaron Fox that decided that longevity was better for his career, meaning I'm not taking it in as aggressive as I am. It took Luke Laux and a text message challenging De'Aaron to get to the paint when De'Aaron Fox had his best run, arguably, as a Sacramento King. It was all because he was getting to the paint this past season, and then it stopped. So now all of the point guard responsibilities fall on Domas Sabonis. Domas Sabonis pushes back a little bit, And we end up where, oh, well, is it Fox that drove Mike Brown out of town? Is it Sabonis that drove Brown out of town? Here's what I would tell you. Well, you never knew if something was wrong off the court with De'Aaron Fox and or you never knew if something was wrong with Domas Sabonis off the court, if he's frustrated with something in his play. You would never know. The complete opposite is true of De'Aaron Fox, and we have multiple things to point to. So when we go back to the gapping,
Well, the biggest thing is we need a point guard. That's for sure.
Hole at point guard, it's that this organization, to a degree, has failed Domantas Sabonis. He was never thought to be that guy. He was supposed to elevate De'Aaron Fox. They were supposed to elevate each other. When in reality, Malik Monk, more times than not, made Domantas Sabonis better. And if you know what I mean by made him better, look at the net ratings. Look at the type of basketball those two played. Look at the paint touches and the sprays out. I have a really hard time crashing down on Harrison Barnes. If it was Keegan Murray that just fell off the charts shooting the 3-ball, okay, let's dig into that a little bit more. But I have a really hard time coming down on every good 3-point shooter that was on this roster that all of a sudden hit a wall and began struggling. I have a hard time coming down on them because it is a trend. Happened with HB, happened with Kevin Huerter, happened with Keegan Murray. So at what point is it the Kings and the system and the inability to adjust that's hurting the players and hurting the shooting? At what point do we make that jump? And I think towards the end of last season, you were just about there. Now, luckily, Domas shot the 3-ball a little bit better. DeMar, forget Deebo. It should be DeMar toe on the line, DeRozan. I love Deebo, but he had his toe on the line so many times. But anytime you watch this Kings team play, the flow was so much better when the ball was moving. Their best run of the season, when Foxy was not on the court, the ball was moving. Everybody was a threat, much closer to what Indiana does, which opens more things up for Sabonis. The Kings were not doing Domantas Sabonis favors by posting him up in the block. That is not his strength. He's not that player. Everybody in the chat has said he's a forward. He's undersized. He's a forward. None of us are fighting back against that. He is an undersized center. His perfect position probably is power forward with the right players around him. The Kings tried to force two round things into a square peg, and it is now blown up in their faces. So you wonder why Golden State says, yeah, I think Sabonis would be great here. Well, yeah, look at the ball movement there. They have a different idea of how to use him. So if we're going to rehash that whole thing, that's my roundabout way of saying that, it's hard to put it all on Domas. It's hard to put it all on Fox. The Halliburton conversation and Al talking about Grant going back, there is something to it when you see what Halliburton is doing at this level. The difference between Tyrese Halliburton, the difference between De'Aaron Fox, and the difference between Domantas Sabonis is one thing. One of those three players is universal. He fits anywhere. Put him with any of the 30 teams in the NBA. He will find a way to make it work. The same is not true with De'Aaron Fox, and the same is not true of Domantas Sabonis. And that's why trading Domantas Sabonis becomes a much bigger conversation, a little bit more cumbersome conversation because of what he's being paid in this new CBA. So a lot to it, really interesting. Want to get your reaction to what I just laid out as well. Again, you've got basketball coming up tonight. The Thunder look to close out the Minnesota Timberwolves. Does anybody see Dante DiVincenzo showing up again the way that he did last night or 2 nights ago? I don't know. I would be surprised. Sabonis is not the problem. I agree, but I also think when Sabonis in 22-23, 22-23 was the peak of Sabonis. He was an All NBA guy. I believe he was All NBA that year. Was he? Correct me if I'm not. He was All NBA either last year or the year before, or the Beam Team year. That was the peak of Sabonis. And what did we hear? We constantly heard, well, you got two guys in a category. It's Jokic and Sabonis. And I think the Kings thought that too. Like, really thought that he was closer to Jokic than in reality what he is, because they're such different players. And they forced it. They forced it. They forced it to the point that I think you've kind of created a bigger gap between the two players, and how, yeah, they have similarities, but their differences are much bigger than they were 2 years ago, which then in turn, okay, Sabonis's value next year, he's going to be getting 43.6. Year after that, 46.7. The year after that, 49.9. Not a bad contract in this sense. Small market. You have to overpay when you are in a small market. But because he's not universal, he could not go to any 30 teams in the NBA and do what he does. You got to have a right system. You've got to have the right guys. You're probably not at this point building around Domas Sabonis, but as a complementary piece, as a 1A, the Kings had 2 1As. That's the bottom line. The Kings had 2 1As in De'Aaron Fox and Domas Sabonis. And they were looking for a result, much like the Pacers are having right now. Unfortunately, if this holds up, maybe it's already happened. Tyrese Halliburton has proved himself as a 1. Bona fide 1. I saw somebody in the chat put that they would take Halliburton over SGA. I don't know that. I maybe I think about it for a second, but I don't know. Initially, that doesn't sit great with me. So the challenge with trading Sabonis is simply the money and the fit. For the right team in the right position, I think they would take it on for a year or two. You might take a haircut, though. You might, if you're looking to clean out with Domas. I just would like to see Domas with a true point guard. I think it makes a world of difference. You bring in the extra length. Now you're talking a whole different story. If you weren't with the show last week, we got into what might happen with De'Aaron Fox, because the Spurs are not pot committed by any means to De'Aaron Fox. They have 2 first-round draft picks in the lottery this year. They have the reigning rookie of the year. They're lined up very well to get Giannis. Outside of Fox's contract, making it a challenge to move him. Now, the counter to that, it's an expiring contract. I don't know that San Antonio, if Castle continues to develop, that they're going to see De'Aaron Fox as a $36 to $40 million player in this NBA with this CBA. It should be a real big, interesting thing to follow. You know who's always a solid player, whether it's Roseville, Rockland, Howe, and Fair Oaks, Bennett's Restaurants, prime cuts of seafood and steak. Whether you are craving the prime New York, which is killer, you bring it out to you before it's cooked. You get to pick the one that you want, or it comes out on a nice cutting board too. super sexy. Anyways, I love Bennett's. I'm sorry. Go check them out. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. They've also got great fish. Love the red fish there. It's a blackened piece of fish with spinach and a grilled lemon. And besides the entrees, they've got awesome specials that run all week long. One of my favorites is brunch on the weekends. You can get 2 entrees, bottle of champagne for under $60. You got happy hour 2 to 6 o'clock every day of the week. 60 different glasses of, or 60 different wines by the glass. Excuse me there. And also prime rib on the weekend. So they have got a little bit of everything. Make sure you go to their website again, Bennett'sRestaurants.com. You can check out the full menu. You can check out all the different specials, their seasonal menus that Brian rolls out with sometimes, and sign up for the newsletter, because then you can find out in advance when they're rolling out new stuff, like their sandwiches at lunch Monday through Friday, 11 to I believe 4 o'clock. So love them. You can do everything through the website, whether it is buying gift cards, making that reservation, or putting in your order to go. Bennett's got it all for you. Let us know when you go in, and when you go in, let them know that you heard about them here on the channel. Big thanks to Brian and Margot and the team at all 3 locations for supporting this channel and sponsoring today's episode of The King's Court. Big thanks to Brian and the teams. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Let us know when you go in. We will retweet it. We love passing that along to Brian too. So, all right, let's get back to the chat, because I have been ignoring that for a second. When it's time to pay Castle, it will be bye-bye Fox. Well, you got to make the decision before that. So you have Castle for another 4 years with the option, so you can match on that last year. That decision, and that's what makes it so interesting, Mark, is that decision is gonna, Fox's camp wants that decision made today. He doesn't want to go into this year on an expiring contract. But if he was to go into this year on an expiring contract, I think that would be a terrible move. I do. I think that would just be like bringing in another Terrence Davis. I don't see D'Lo being that guy. It's another point guard that's going to rely on the 3-point shot. He does not get to the rim nearly as much as he used to. Defense is not great. I am not high on him whatsoever. Ty Jerome, I really like. I think there's better options out there. I think really, if you're a Kings fan, I would be rooting for Oklahoma City to lose the finals. That's what I would be rooting for, because if I'm Scott Perry, if I'm BJ Armstrong, I am pitching Oklahoma City on another guy like DeMar DeRozan. That if SGA gets doubled, now they've got to worry about doubling another guy on the floor, which we saw so many times this year with DeMar. Go get you an Alex Caruso in that deal. Oklahoma City has the 6th pick in the draft this year. They got it from Philly. Go figure. I was surprised OKC was not on that list. But, Sam Presti, executive of the year, he's not going to overpay for anything. But back to Foxy, you've got to make that decision by the trade deadline if you don't make it this summer. So it's coming up much sooner than that. As we keep going through, LaMelo, Levine, Keegan, Sabonis, and a real point guard. Well, the real point guard, and here's, look, I'm not going to say that Domas spoke up, but there's a reason the Kings at the end of the year, and partially it was because of injuries, that it was the responsibility of almost everybody on the court to bring up the basketball. They had to go point guard by committee. I do think a point guard helps Zach LaVine tremendously. And that's where also another challenge lies with this team, with what we think the Kings are going to do and the guys that are coming back, because you've got 2 big competing interests here. You've got Zach LaVine, who, as we sit today, set to make 47.5 basically million next year, and then a player option the following year, 48.9. That is a contract that nobody else in the NBA wants for numerous reasons. Now, this year, I think he brought a little bit more value to the contract because he was able to stay on the court. That is first and foremost the most important thing. But if you're Scott Perry, you have to find a way, and this is going to be incorporated with Doug Christie too. You have to feature Zach LaVine in some fortune because I used this example, I think, last week. If you took the Kings' current roster and payroll to a CPA and they had to do a balance sheet listing assets and liabilities, Zach LaVine and his contract would be listed on the liability side. So the Kings have to try both on the floor and what they do offensively to get him going, because it's going to lead to the Kings winning more games. But again, I go back to the Kings ruining three-point shooters. How poorly did Zach LaVine shoot the three ball during stretches here in Sactown? So again, how much is it system versus players? And that's where I give the players a little bit more grace. But with Zach, he's going to have to be heavily featured. And I think that's also another reason you're looking at moving DeMar. Here's the other thing. What about Keegan Murray? This is the year for Keegan Murray. They have to try and find out what they have offensively. Defensively, you know what you have in Keegan Murray. You know it. He is a top-level defender. If Keegan Murray was on a playoff team that wasn't named Sacramento, he would have received votes for one of the all-defensive teams. But this is the year where I feel like the Kings are going to have to find a way to feature him offensively, or at least give him the opportunity to feature himself offensively, because that's a big decision too. So that's where there's that interesting dynamic. So a lot of stuff with this team, but I think it does start with DeMar DeRozan. If you're just joining us here on the show, we have been talking about the Vegas odds on where DeMar DeRozan might land. We'll throw those up one more time for you. Atop the list, believe it or not, the Miami Heat. If you're going to do the Miami Heat, get me Jaime Jaquez. I need Jaime Jaquez as part of that deal. Somehow, some way. I don't see them parting ways with him, but man, I think he is a good cloth guy to have around a team that's coached by Doug Christie. I do. And for those wondering about LaRavia, I think it's in Jake LaRavia's best interest. First off, I don't think, and I know Shams said that the market, this would be one of the craziest. No, he said the craziest offseason in the history of the NBA. I don't disagree with him. I have been predicting that. I said last year's trade deadline is just the start. Teams are going to have less patience. Coaches are going to be asked to do more with less because of this CBA. You'll see teams go all in, but it's going to be for a year or two because of the restrictions and the penalties. That's why Boston's going to have to disarm a little bit more. But for Jake LaRavia, I think what the Kings can offer him, which is right around 5.3, I think that's about right for his market value. And if you're him, take a short contract, prove yourself here in Sacramento. You are already entrenched with Doug Christie. Everything about your game is everything Doug stands for or stood for as a player, now as a coach. I think Sacramento gives him the best opportunity to get the minutes to show out, and it's the right system. So we'll see what the market bears with him. But as for DeMar DeRozan, that's where it's at. The Lakers, that's an interesting one to me. I just don't know. I mean, does Hachimura, how much different is Hachimura from a Murray? And how does that hurt Keegan to a degree? You're going to put him in the same spot. A lot of questions. And again, these are just odds, but Vegas usually knows what they're talking about. Now, Philadelphia, we have not talked about yet. Talked about Denver. Toronto would probably include an RJ Barrett. We've talked about Denver, Michael Porter Jr., as suggested by Paul Pierce. What about Philly? They're in a really weird position with Joel Embiid, but he's not the guy I'm looking at. What about Tyrese Maxey? Could the Kings pry away Tyrese Maxey? I don't know how the money lines up because I'm not looking at it. But Philly found themselves in that really weird position, that AKA basketball purgatory at the end of the season where Maxey was still playing and playing actually pretty well. And then what happens? They're supposed to get a high draft pick. Nope. They fall to 6 and lose their draft pick. So interesting to see what Philly's going to do with Maxey and Joel Embiid. So that's the DeMar DeRozan odds. They might have changed since the last time that we looked. Sabonis should have been an all-star the last 2 years, so he should have been a 5-time all-star. Peter, I understand. I do understand why he wasn't an all-star this year. Last year, zero explanation for it. This year, I see a road. Not saying I agree with the road, but I do see a road where he wasn't. Rashawn Holmes should have been your center. Yeah, what, $24 million? Come on. And then the guys in the hopper down in Stockton, remember, none of these guys outside of Mason Jones, outside of your two-way guys, the rest of the Stockton team, they're signed to the G League. They're not signed to Stockton. You've got Terry Taylor, and none of these guys are, and I'm going to take Mace out of the conversation here, but none of the guys are really ready to come up yet. You've got some stuff that's marinating that's really good. Like Terry Taylor, I love him, but Terry Taylor is in the exact same situation that Sasha Vezenkov was in. Like Jerry explained yesterday, he's size-wise a 3, but he plays like a 4. So that's Terry's challenge, or Terry Taylor's challenge, but he has got an NBA shot. I'll give you that. He has got a very smooth left-handed shot. Look, I love Mason Jones. Mace is an incredible guy. Finals MVP for the G League. What's he doing? A couple days later, he's already training and doing his hot yoga at 5:45 in the morning. In fact, he was on a flight a few days later with me, headed to Dallas. We weren't going together, but we ran into each other, so that was a pleasant surprise. And we were talking, and he wants to bring a championship to Sacramento. Now, how realistic is that? Not very realistic, but I love where the mind's at. He just brought one to Stockton. Here's the thing with Mace. Jerry and I both agree that he's on the radar of a lot of NBA teams, but I don't know that Mace is the right type of point guard for the Kings. Mace has transformed, especially this last year, into a much better scorer. So that's interesting to look at. And here's one name that I always get asked about, like, who's the next Keon Ellis? First off, I don't know that you're ever going to have the next Keon Ellis, because Keon was, thank you for picking me up there, Peter, 38 next year with 4 more years. No way Philly lets him go. Yeah, Embiid, they just can't get back in to bed with Embiid. You can't do it. Now, that's interesting. That is an interesting one there. Remember, Rock, you have to do twice as much to get half the recognition when you play in Sacramento. Just the way it is. There's a stench because of the way the teams ran and how they operate. Just look at every transaction with the front, not the player transactions. Look at the transactions that involved the owner directly this year. The way Mike Brown was fired, putting Doug Christie from the 4th chair to the 1st chair, already having your GM hired before you fired. Your GM, who, by the way, fell on the sword and then walked up to a firing squad 45 days after the fact and had to sit down for a Mickey Mouse softball pre-written AI interview with Mark Jones, taking all responsibility for firing Mike Brown. And by the way, then Scott Perry, who was hired before Monty was fired, was told, here's your head coach. So you got to do twice as much. Now, when you step in it, you're going to get twice the attention. Think about what, I'm not going to play it right now, but we've heard the national guys just trash the Kings. Okay, last guy I wanted to get to. Last guy. I think you got to get him a point guard. You get him a point guard this year. I think you've got another year with Sabonis. You can get him a point guard. There's a good argument to be made. And he's been pretty damn direct.
Well, the biggest thing is we need a point guard, that's for sure.
And here's the other thing you got to do. You got to include Domas Sabonis somehow into conversations that are above a player's pay grade. I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do, but I am saying it's the norm in the NBA. It's the norm. He was not consulted on the Brown firing. De'Aaron Fox was not consulted on the Brown firing. Both of them were not consulted on the Doug Christie hiring. In fact, the airplane sat there on the tarmac, waiting to find out who was going to be the head coach. It's not a secret anymore. Domas was not a huge fan of Mike Brown at the end of Mike Brown's tenure. There were 3 Kings in the locker room when Mike Brown was fired that were in favor of it, that wanted it. After Kevin Huerter was traded, there was 2. This all spilled out, and this is all stuff we were going to say, all right, we're not going to really take the lid off of it right now because there's no reason to do it. And then it slowly started leaking out, and we had to address it. Get him a point guard.
Well, the biggest thing is we need a point guard, that's for sure.
If you're Doug Christie, you got to listen to the man. I think he needs to be heard a little bit more when it comes to how he's used. And I don't think Domas necessarily feels like he has been heard with his usage. Doesn't mean that he does not love playing basketball and leaves it all on the floor. I just think Domas believes, and I believe he could be used better. So get him a little bit more. And he said that in his post-game or his exit interview as well. Just to close out, I wanted to give you the name to keep an eye on. And I don't know if Stockton's bringing him back or not, but Dexter Dennis. Dex, if you want to, because I get asked this all the time, who's the next Keon? Dex is not the next Keon, but Dex has the raw athleticism defensively. It doesn't matter at all. This is a 500 team, not going anywhere. Then why are we here talking about him right now, Jeff? On May 28th, 2025, 4:40 p.m., a team that backed their way into the play-in, a team that is dysfunctional from the top down. We're sitting here talking about them because this is the best and most knowledgeable fan base in the NBA. Jeff, that's an LA take. That's not a Sacramento take. If that's the way you feel, then this probably isn't the stream for you. This is a stream where we're trying to find ways. We acknowledge the challenge. but we're trying to find ways. And I respect your opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong, but it doesn't mean that we're going to quit. I mean, we're going to call a spade a spade. Grant and I get called negative all the time because we tell the truth. So I'm trying to give you some hope here. Anyways, Dexter Dennis, keep an eye on him. I've talked about him at length. He played really well in the G League finals. And mind you, massive difference between the G League and the NBA. So we can continue that conversation another day. Does Oklahoma City close it out tonight? Which way is everybody going? You going OKC, or do you think the Timberwolves extend the series? Which way you going? I think it ends tonight. I don't know that you'll get as good of a game out of Chet Holmgren offensively. I also don't think Minnesota's bench is going to do what it did last game. You'll get more out of Anthony Edwards. If you don't get more out of Anthony Edwards, it's going to be a long postseason for him, or off season. But Julius Randle has not been great either. I go back to it. Nickeil Alexander, you can't rely on him. Again, that bench, they need to get more from their starting unit. They need to get a little bit more defensively from Rudy Gobert. Helicopter sweep going OKC. Yeah, I'm with you. I am going OKC in this one as well. I think Jalen Williams will have a big game. I probably SGA has the breakout game, right? He scores 40 last game. Hartenstein only had 2 last game. I expect him to have a bigger role in this one. I actually don't really expect it to be that close. I could be wrong. Rock says OKC in the finals. Tyrese Halliburton wins finals MVP. I don't know. You're going to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay, please do not do that. I don't want that on my hands. I don't need that on my hands. Now I'm going to have to sit there next to you every game of the NBA Finals, if he makes it there, to make sure that you're not going to jump off a bridge. Come on, Rock. Rock. You're going bubbles on me, man. Come on. OKC, I think Minnesota will survive tonight. Okay. But it will be very close. OKC will demolish them in game 6. Yeah. I think SGA is going to have a little bit of a quieter night tonight from SGA. I could be wrong. I just think it's going to be a little bit more of the other guys in this one. So, man, it's been a fun day. It's been a fun day. If you take one thing from this stream,
The biggest thing is we need a point guard. That's for sure.
that's what you need to take from it. And DeMar DeRozan, keep an eye on the market. I would expect the Kings to be much more prudent with this DeMar DeRozan move, because, and we're assuming they're going to make a move. I do believe that the move will be made, but this is really, if I'm being frank, this is really what the Kings have to work with this offseason, because you don't have that first round pick. You have the 42nd pick. You've got the money. You have a lot of spots to fill. So I truly believe one way or another, this deal has to bring back your point guard somehow, some way. Agree. I agree. I 100% agree. Like, if I put everybody in a room and I said, do you think Domas, like the middle of last season, not this last season, but of 23-24, or even halfway through this season, and I said, do you think Domas is unhappy? You see anything in his play? Not a single person would have raised their hands. Not a single person. Dude does, whoever said it in the chat said it perfectly. He does what's asked of him. He plays with this, and I mean it with the most amount of respect possible. He plays with an insecurity, which is, usually insecurities are not healthy. In this case, I think it kind of is. It's a driving insecurity. He doesn't take his spot in the NBA for granted. He's always worried about somebody taking his spot. So he's always looking to get better. And quite frankly, every time the Kings have asked Domas Sabonis to get better at something, he has. Doesn't mean there's not other stuff to work on, but he has gotten better in those areas. So he's far from the problem. I think he still can be a part of the solution, though. Get Domantas, Chewbacca, Sabaka, whatever
Well,
you
the biggest
want
thing
to
is we
call
need a
him,
point guard. That's
a
for sure.
point guard. Get him a point guard. Hey, join Grant tonight, 8 o'clock. So Grant will be on, by the way, either if the game's a blowout, he will be on right at 8 o'clock. If the game is close, he will be on at the conclusion of the game. Join him for open forum. You can maybe we will have one half of the NBA finals set. Start talking about that. For sure, we'll be digesting all this. I think you guys bring up some good points. Al, I would bring up that point to Grant. What he said last night did make me think a little more deeper on it. Now, my take doesn't change fundamentally, but the way I look at Hallie changes a little bit. So hit him up. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for tuning in. 343 have checked in at some point today. Super appreciate that. By the way, if you didn't catch the whole show, it's on YouTube. If you're not subscribed, if you are subscribed, thank you. If you're not subscribed, you can scan that QR code and join the 8.2 thousand plus that are a part of the channel. Grant and I are spitting out a ton of content this summer, and we will continue to. Also, both of our shows can be found on most of your major podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc. So you can download the audio there if you want to take it with you in the car. So that's going to do it. Good conversations today. Well done. Mr. Moss kicks us off. We had Al call in. Good stuff in the chat. Appreciate y'all. We'll be back tomorrow on the King's Court to close out the week. Well, no, why do I, you know what? I'm so screwed up right now because of Memorial Day. Today just feels like a Thursday. I don't know why. It's a Wednesday, but it feels like a Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow to summarize what happened tonight. We'll continue the Kings talk and kind of see where the Kings go from there. Go ahead. Hit me, Jimmy.
Ryan, that's not funny.
It's not.
Or interesting or anything at all.
It wasn't. No. You don't know the day. You don't deserve to be on the air. That's how hard I'm working now. Appreciate y'all. Join Grant tonight, 8 o'clock. Fun having you. And enjoy the basketball game too. Hockey. Don't forget about hockey. Hockey going on too. Love watching the NHL right now. Holy crap, has that caught my attention. Go Kings. Light the beam. Court is dismissed.